My theory is that she was picked as the vice president way back in South Carolina. I believe that Biden, because I don't know if everybody remembers and still doesn't understand, Biden doesn't really have a campaign. He just kind of just patching things together, and he's not Trump. I believe back in South Carolina, Bernie was about to take the nomination, and that what ended up happening is a side deal whereby Kamala Harris would not run in South Carolina and split the black vote. And as a result, she would get the vice president nomination despite having nothing to trade other than the optics of being black and how black people in South Carolina would have voted for her. That's the only thing she could give him. She had no delegates or anything else. So on the backs of ADOS in South Carolina, she got the vice presidential nomination to help Biden basically kind of undercut, we can almost call it cheat, Bernie and the voters. And the reason why it's such a cheat to me, let me explain, is because fundamentally we choose who we want to see in the primaries throughout the debates cycle. Well, if we chose to see you in the primary and see you actually run in the primary, and as a result did not choose someone else who had to drop out earlier, you cheated the system if you drop out before the primaries only to make another candidate coalesce with your vote. This is, to me, different than if you got delegate counts and you actually have high level support and you do this to coalesce the party. Especially when you have such an outside candidate as Bernie, and this isn't support for Bernie, this is just saying what I think happened is that basically a side deal was done where Kamala was going to be the VP and she just wasn't going to hurt Biden's chances in South Carolina. Can everybody see that?
Well, she did a whole study. So when she first became Attorney General,
Kamala Harris.
Yes, she did a whole study on it. And if you Google it, the whole truancy study with Kamala Harris, I mean, she had videos. She had this whole round table.
I want you to kind of get into the day of, like, what, are you in bed? Are you in the kitchen? How did this all go down?
Well, I got to backtrack a little bit because there's I didn't know what they were actually trying, this whole truancy thing, but they were sending me letters and I was responding. And I was pregnant at the time. I was due at the time with my son that is now 7. And I'm like, I'm due. I was high risk. So I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna make it to this meeting because my son is due any day. So I got a call the day after I had my son, and it was an intimidating call. And it was like, why you're not here? And I'm like, I'm in the hospital. And
I would not be standing here were it not for the education I received. And I know many of us will say the same thing. And I believe a child going without an education is tantamount to a crime. So I decided I was going to start prosecuting parents for truancy. Well, this was a little controversial in San Francisco. And frankly, my staff went bananas. They were very concerned because we didn't know at the time whether I was going to have an opponent in my re-election race. But I said, look, I'm done. This is a serious issue, and I've got a little political capital, and I'm going to spend some of it. And this is what we did. We recognized that in that initiative, as a prosecutor and law enforcement, I have a huge stick. The school district has got a carrot. Let's work in tandem around our collective objective and goal, which is to get those kids in school. So, to that end, on my letterhead, now let me tell you something about my letterhead. When you're the DA of a major city in this country, usually the job comes with a badge. And there is often an artistic rendering of said badge on your stationery. So I sent a letter out on my letterhead to every parent in the school district, outlining the connection that was statistically proven between elementary school truancy, high school dropouts, who will become a victim of crime, and who will become a perpetrator of crime. We sent it out to everyone. A friend of mine actually called me and he said, Kamala, my wife got the letter. She freaked out. She brought all the kids into the living room, held up the letter, said, if you don't go to school, Kamala's gonna put you and me in jail. Yes, we achieved intended effect.
They were busting me out. And I'm like, what is this about? Get home 2 weeks later, they denied my daughter her IEP. And I'm like, okay, maybe I need to reapply all over again. Reapplied. Next thing I know, an investigator came to my house. I'm under the impression the investigator is to help me with services. Again, I'm always the one looking for services, trying to find advocates to help me with the situation. So thinking that the investigator was there to help me, I'm giving out information, not knowing until he was getting ready to leave my house. And I said, excuse me, sir. He was like, here's my business card. And I looked at it and it said Buena Park Police Department.
No attorney.
I said, wait a minute. Do I need a lawyer? He said, oh, no, Miss Peoples, you're fine. And I'm like, okay. In the back of my mind, I'm like, something not right. So about 30 days later, a knock on the door. My son's father actually answered because I was asleep because our son was colicky, and just put him to bed. Shayla actually went to school this day, and he come back and he was waking me up like, Sheree, the police at the door. And I'm like, police? Did you just say police? Like, why would the police? You know, in my mind, because I'm asleep. So we had a townhouse, so I had to go down the stairs to get to the door. I open up the door and sun is in my face. I'm looking at this cop. He was like, are you Sheree Peoples? I said, I'm Sheree. And he was like, I have a warrant for your arrest.
I want to bring Yvette in here because I'm a tee off on this question, and I'm gonna come right to her. Is Kamala Harris right for Black America in 2020? And I look at it and I look at her name, and Kamala Harris, Kamala means lotus in Indian. Did we think that was an African name? Did we confuse that? Would it be different if her name was Myrice or something that sounded more Indian? Because this is an Indian name that she has, her first name. It's not African. I want to make sure everybody understands that. Then when we look over at her platform, and she's running on being tough, principled, and fearless. So we know Jindal, we know Nikki Haley, we know the history of Indians is highly conservative. This platform is conservative. Tough, principled, fearless, former prosecutor, hard-nosed. How did we get to the point that we thought she was for Black folks? Yvette, what's your point on this?
Let me just, I'm going to get that, but I'm going to get that if you can just give me a couple minutes. Because I'm going to get to that, but I'm going to get to that in something else. Because I got to have just a couple minutes to address Roland Martin. I'm sorry. I got to clear the floor. I got to address him because he made some of the stupidest points that I have ever seen anybody who claims to be a journalist and who claims to practice journalism to make. And I just have to address that first on. First of all, the man without any, go watch the video on his channel. All of the comments are negative because he didn't make any sense. But the first thing that Roland says when he was just talking about Roland Martin, he says that this is an expression of self-hate by us trying to define who we are in terms of who Kamala Harris is and what she is not, or Kamala Harris, who she is and what she is not. That is not, first of all, an attack. And second of all, that is not self-hate. That means we love us and we love our contribution. If anything, that shows that we love ourselves more. How you get this self-hate stuff, or where you get that from, makes no sense. Also understand, he starts calling her sister and says she went to Howard University. First of all, understand that you call her sister. That doesn't make you are not an arbiter of anything, Roland Martin. You don't make any decisions for anybody, Roland Martin. You are not bigger than me, Roland Martin, even on YouTube. So let's get that very, very clear. You do not get to decide because she went to Howard University that she's a sister. Howard University is an expression of American Black DOS life. It does not make you Black. It does not make you be able to cloak yourself in that Black. But the most important thing I want to get to, and I'm going to let you get on to the questions, is he says, well, who's going to ask the questions? All these people just talk, and they don't ask any of the questions. Well, Roland, you're supposed to ask the question. You running around here like you the Black MSNBC. The only thing that we're doing is we're making your job easy. We're telling you exactly what to ask for. Then the man comes on and says, well, nobody has an agenda 3 days in. Elizabeth Warren came out the gate talking about redlining. I don't even know if Cory Booker announced yet, and he's talking about the racial income inequality. Everybody's talking about an agenda that includes, two of the top people are talking about an agenda and how that includes race and how race is central to that. What are you talking about? Like, this is just stupidity.
So again, this is Dash Radio, Dash Talk X, Tone Talks. We talking Kamala Harris, we talking the Black vote, and we talking about should she be running as the first African-American or first African-American woman. We're going to get into a lot of the history, the backdrop, and everything that's going on. And what I'm seeing is we got to start off by looking at her record as a prosecutor. You know, her record as a prosecutor is the destruction of black families. You look at things and we gotta look at her whole thing with sending parents to jail for truancy. The craziest thing I've ever heard. $2,000 fine and some jail time for your kids having, I guess, a continuation of truancy of some sort. Who does that? I mean, you have, prisoners fighting fires. You have her not taking a position on Prop 47, which allowed low-level felonies to become misdemeanors. You have her AG office actually standing against the release of prisoners. So we have so much here as far as Kamala Harris's record that it's clear that she stands as a conservative. She isn't in our box when we even start with her history. Yvette, what you think about her history as a prosecutor?
Yeah, there is no, listen, if her history wasn't as a prosecutor, if her history included activism for American DOS people, then I think we will be having a different conversation. That doesn't mean that definitionally that she would be one of us. We would say that, well, she has adopted our issues and she has been advocating for us. So she has put herself in the mode of a Shirley Chisholm or a Kwame Ture. She has put herself in that mode. She has never done that. She is trying to use us right now to access the White House. But what she did, the real Kamala, you heard the real Kamala Harris, when they asked her, well, how do you define yourself? And she said, have you read my book? I define myself as a proud American. You don't get to go to Howard University and just define yourself as a proud American. Go somewhere else and announce your campaign if that's all you're going to do. We need specific policies. We need a specific agenda. And we need Mr. Roland Martin, if he wants to play that game and act like he wants to be Mr. MSNBC and he wants to run around here and be Black News, then you need to do that, Mr. Soft Shoe.
Again, this is Tone Talks Radio Talk X. For those people that didn't catch the beginning of the show, we talking Kamala Harris. We talking about the reality of how Kamala Harris has come out on MLK Day at Howard with no black policies. You know, she came out and she took a lot of pictures in what's the colors, green and pink. But I didn't hear nothing about black folks. And when she was asked about black folks, she said basically all lives matter. That I'm running for all of America. Let's get into it. Second part, you know, would we have voted for Obama if he was married to a white woman? I made this point before. I don't have an issue per se with interracial dating or marriage. But I understand people make choices. But when we come to politicians, particularly politicians that have no bones buried here in America, we have to start looking at, did we vote for Obama or did we vote for Obama's family? Because he didn't have much policy either for black folks. I believe that we voted for Obama in context of Michelle Obama, an American DOS from Chicago. And so when we start to look at Kamala, are we having a double standard? Are we not being honest that we're okay with a black woman being married to a white man and running for office, but not okay if it's a black man? What do you think, Yvette?
Well, yeah, I think listen, she is running on identity politics. She doesn't have an agenda up on her own campaign page. Nope. So stop telling me focus on her policies. I don't even know what her policy is because she don't have anything up. She didn't even make a policy-oriented speech when she spoke. So I have no idea what this woman stands for. But if you're going to run on identity politics, if you're going to run on being the first African-American, that's what you're calling yourself, the first African-American potential woman president. If you're going to run on being Howard University alum, if you're going to run on being an AKA, then I need to be able to discuss your identity and your family and the people around you and your heritage and your husband are all part of that identity. If you don't want to run on identity, then you should just come to me and give me a bold set of politics that impact my community. If not, everything's fair game.
Come on. I mean, she's running on prom queen identity to me. I come back to it, as I said earlier. You look at her name is Kamala. But I think that we think that's an African name. And we got our own issues dealing with Africa as a place. But it's actually an Indian name that means lotus. This woman is grounded and rooted in being Indian. We'll talk about that in a second. Now, I don't have no issue per se with that on its own, her being rooted in being Indian. But you don't get to be rooted in being Indian and then use my people, my 40 million African Americans, 36 million African Americans, DOS, as the boot under the people under your boot to boost you up, not with no policy. Come on. So we start looking and we look and see that she graduated from high school in Canada. looks like she was moved there for quite a considerable amount of time in Canada. So she's Indian, Jamaican, American, and Canadian. I don't think we understand like what we're talking about. We're not talking about no concert and nobody trying to sing for us. We're not talking about somebody just writing a book. We talking about somebody running for president and running for president on the guise of being African American. This is the shot that, you know, we had Obama and now we're going to take a second shot with Kamala. Is there an issue, Yvette, that you see with her graduating high school in Canada versus coming from, say, South Central Los Angeles, Atlanta, Georgia, anywhere like that?
Yeah, because you didn't live a life here. Like there is no lived Black experience. Like in America, I'm not talking about a lived Black experience in Canada. I'm talking about you left Oakland or that little place where you lived at like 7, and then you graduated high school in Canada and you came back and went to Howard University, right? And so you don't sound to me as someone who is immersed in that experience, in the experience of growing up American DOS in this country. But it wouldn't be as much of an issue. But see, what people have to understand is this. Roland Martin, why are people attacking her? We're not attacking her. We are defining her accurately. That's what we didn't do with Obama. We are defining her how she should be defined. She is Indian and Jamaican, and then went to Canada and grew up there in her formative years. We are defining her accurately. That's not an attack. That's an accurate definition.
Everybody gonna say she was born in the Bay. I know people from the Bay. They say that she was elitist. I'm just gonna say it straight. Everybody say she was born in the Bay. She graduated from high school in Canada. Everybody says she was born in the Bay and she's Jamaican. The daddy lost custody at 7 or 8. Come on, man. Look, we got to get honest that when Obama had a white mama and a detached and no relationship with the father, we were okay with calling him white and dealing with the fact that he came through whiteness. Somehow, because she went to Howard, we think that she's not like Obama. She's not grounded in being Indian, even if it comes out of her mouth. We'll talk about how she said that my mama is everything. How the auntie, Kamala's auntie, has said everything Kamala is because of her mother. How everything that we see shows us that her background has led into her career as a career hard-nosed prosecutor. Very much like the rest of the Indians in politics. At what point do you just get honest? There ain't no smiles and laughs with Cardi B gonna be enough. But let me tell you, walk you down a little lane. My mama is a year, I said this on my short video and on Yvette's show. My mama is a year older than Kamala. My mama didn't know her pops that well, not at all. My mama had a relationship with her moms here and there. This is what slavery leaves behind, though. This is what slavery leaves behind. The broken family lines, the cost of it all. People will say, well, I didn't have that and I come from slavery. Well, talk to your cousin then. Kamala don't have that cousin, though. Her cousin is Indian or Jamaican. Very different storylines. So what I see is when I start to deal with this thing, the reason a Black politician needs to come out of American DOS life is because they have to speak that into the halls of Congress. They have to speak that into the Oval Office. How can Kamala do that for you? Talk to me. How can Kamala tell you about the crack cocaine that was being sold like I show in my documentary, Freeway Crack in the System, if she knows nothing about that? She can't. All she can do is put you in prison like she was doing. Yvette, what you think?
Listen, what I think is that we're not, and you're right, like that's what she was doing. Nobody is attacking Kamala Harris, though. What we're saying is very clear. We're saying stop playing with us. We're saying have an agenda for us. If you're going to announce, especially if you're going to announce to Howard University, stop playing with us. Give us a real agenda. We don't want any more of your identity. We don't want your ski-week. I'm saying stop playing with me and my community. And what Roland Martin and people like him need to understand is that we're doing your job. You should be saying, hey, I'm going to ask her about her stuff. And then you say, well, these people aren't really doing anything. These people implying Antonio and Yvette aren't really doing anything. Understand that all this stuff that Donald Trump just did was largely because of people like Dan Coulter and Rush Limbaugh. People who influence people and influence the culture and influence politics. That's what we do. And that's why you mad. that you don't have. But we're telling you how to do your job. We're telling you what the people say and what the people think and the kind of agenda they want. Mr. Journalist, go and do your job. We made it easy. You had one job. Why can't you do it?
Let's not forget about how Kamala Harris failed to explain why she didn't prosecute Steve Minuchin. You know, the banks. Kamala knows how to prosecute black mothers and knows how to throw black prisoners out there to fight fires. Her office, at least. But she didn't. She was right there when Steve Minuchin could have went to prison or faced jail time. And what she said, it's a decision my office made. How can you deal with somebody that every time a hard thing comes up and their office went the wrong way, she says, I didn't know. She said that about the firefighting for the prisoners as well. 3 men died fighting these fires. Hundreds were injured. Paid $1.45 a day. This is who you guys are supporting and telling me about politics and policy. So I look at Minuchin and there was like 4,000 cases of issues, supposedly. This 4,000 issues of cases, supposedly, according to The Intercept, with mortgage issues. This is, if she didn't do this, she can't run under our flag as American DOS. She already don't have the lineage. I'm sorry. We'll talk about it in a second. And so, like, when I start to see this thing, I see people like Roland Martin. I see people come out and say, well, she went to Howard. Rachel Dolezal went to Howard, too. Is Rachel Dolezal black? Is Rachel Dolezal African-American? Let me say that. She was actually with the NAACP and doing all kind of things for black folks. So Kamala can be a prosecutor, and because she has an estranged relationship with a Jamaican father, all of a sudden she has access to the lineage of African Americans in America that died, that lost broken family lines, that were put boot to neck, that were chattel slaves. Don't make no sense. But Rachel Dolezal gets laughed off the stage. To me, they more similar than different. Come on. I'm not saying that Kamala's not black. Let me say that again. The woman is a black woman. At least from the definition we've decided to use globally. But she is definitely not African-American and not American descendant of slave. Come on, Yvette, what you think?
Even Gillibrand, when she went to that Sharpton thing, spoke about our issues. Even Biden, who I would never give a pass because he co-authored the bill that put mass incarceration for black men on roller skates. I would never support him, but even he came forward and talked about how that was a mistake. Everybody is addressing what they would do for us. Like, even if everybody is addressing some kind of way to talk about race and racism and how to understand it. Only Kamala is out here talking about I'm just an American while trying to be the only person to stand in this racial space. You can't do that. And then people got to stop.
Tell them what Howard means. I mean, when you announce at Howard, let's go back to Lyndon Johnson, where he gave the speech talking about the chains that held black people back that justified affirmative action. When you go to Howard, it ain't just for no prom queen thing. You better come with some policy or don't step at all. I'm just telling you the straight talk. It's a lot of people who failed us that were right in that room that should have shouted her down. Where's the policy? I get all the smiles. What does Howard mean to you, Yvette, as a grad?
I mean, Howard is the signature of American DOS institution. Like, that's where you're supposed to come to try to understand what it means to be American DOS in America, how to navigate your life as one of us, where we come from, and how to move within that space. And that's what you're supposed to be doing when you're there. Hey, if you don't want to do that, though, you don't have to be here. You don't have to come to this institution and announce. You can announce anywhere. But see, that's what we do. We allow these people, like Obama went to Morehouse and then Kamala goes to Howard, to come to our institutions and cloak yourself in race while giving a raceless speech. No, if you're going to do that, you have to tell me about transformative policies that you're going to use and the way you're going to get out the black vote. You can't tell me you're just an American. That's a racist thing to say. Go make that racist speech somewhere else.
Again, this is Dash Radio, Dash Talk X. Please, we're on YouTube, on the Super Chat. We got 1,000 people in the box. We in there talking, dialoguing. Please use the Super Chat. Also go to tonetalks.org to subscribe and donate. This is a regular weekly show, Friday, 7 p.m., and we talking. So today we talking Kamala Harris, and we talking about whether she deserves the black vote. We see so much act. When you look at Elizabeth Warren, she just came out with the $50 million tax on people who make more than $50 million, and she's been talking about race and wealth. You look at Bernie Sanders, you see a class-based argument. When you look at Kamala, there's nothing there. Zero. And for me, I think that when we look at this whole discussion, we can't help but start to understand when there's nothing there, you got to look at her history and her choices. That's when you really got to zone in on where did she come from? Did she come from the ACLU? Did she come from a professor's background? And then did she come from community advising? Or did she just come from hard-nosed prosecuting? And then did she just marry a white lawyer recently? And that's going to be her identity. Is she from a strong black community? And I don't mean born there. I mean like rooted there. Like you went to high school there. I mean like this is just insane that people don't understand American DOS, that we got this far. You know, me and Yvette Carnell created this term. We sat down, brainstormed, and we saw that there was a gaping problem. The identity of what we're doing is we're allowing people who just got here, who are first and second generation, to keep their heritage and identity while also saying they're the same as us. Understand that you can't get reparations if that happens. Come on. How are they going to give reparations out right now, today? Who would get it? Be honest with yourself. Would it be your kid or would it be somebody from the Caribbean? Would it be your kid or somebody from Nigeria? If they decided to give reparations today, they're giving it to black folks. And is your kid better positioned than anyone else from somewhere else that didn't even have to be repaired? Because reparations is about repairing a damage, not a general damage that the Caribbeans experienced as a result of the English. No, an American damage. And I don't think we've really understood that if we don't deal with identity and have this reckoning, we can't move forward. Kamala is only a small part of a bigger discussion that black folks need to have, and we gonna have it. Me and Yvette gonna fight tooth and nail to have it. What's your thoughts, Yvette?
Well, I want American descendants of slaves to come to terms with one thing. We have to ask ourselves, I keep hearing people say, like we're all black, and there's a flattening when you come to this country. So if you're Jamaican, you get to be Jamaican. If you are Ghanaian, you get to be Ghanaian, and if you are Eritrean, you get to be. If you're Ethiopian, you get to be Ethiopian. But when you come to America, it's just flat black. Everybody just flat black. And understand that doesn't exist anywhere like this. So let me just say this: we talked about DNA before. You and I both did our DNA. I know people talk about some controversy or whatever, but when I did mine, it said I'm 36% European, right? 36%, and the rest is West African. That's what mine came back saying. Now, here's the issue. According to this test, I have more Irish in me than I have Nigerian, okay? Now, do I go claim Ireland now? Do I go claim all of West Africa now? At a certain point, we have to come to terms with the most consequential thing in our lives, in our history, is slavery because of what slavery did to us and what it built in terms of the richest country in the world. America needed money, and in the Virginia that came from tobacco, and in the South that came from cotton, and we built this country. We financed this country. This is who we are. We are not some diasporic people scattered throughout the globe. We are American DOS. We are a very specific tribe, and anybody who tells you differently is trying to con you.
I have to agree. Yvette, do you understand that the slaves, just the bodies before we get to the labor, were worth more than everything? The railroads, the land, everything. Just the bodies. When you get to the labor, when a slave had 3 years of field training, he was worth more than a house. I don't think we understand how much we contributed. And also, I don't think we understand what reparations actually does to the identity of blackness as we formed it. It can't stay. Because what reparations does is it propels American DOS to elite status in America, to an elite status of citizenship, through the money and the wealth that we will be given, and the access and the privilege. I don't think everybody's ready to reconcile that, and especially if you're not going to get that benefit, why would you want us to get reparations?
Democratic
Voters were not looking for an Obama-style candidate running more on charisma and personality than on policy. Number two, Biden, Sanders, and Warren were strong rivals. In particular, Biden's strength among black voters and Warren's support among college-educated whites boxed Harris out among two groups. Number three, Harris herself had not been an ideal candidate. At times, she struggled to explain her policy stances and her reasons for running for president. Number four, and finally, Harris, as a woman of color, faced extra high hurdles with a Democratic Party that focused on each candidate's perceived ability to defeat Trump. Many of you nominated a woman as risky bet in the general. Harris dropping out now surprised me, said the author. I expected she would stay in the race at least through Iowa and perhaps even New Hampshire, and dropped out if she had a poor showing. He continued by showing he has this chart, and he really showed like how her polling numbers just dropped off the after she announced she was high. She was at like 15, and then she kind of like fluttered and then just went down. And I need you to see it, because my fifth thing is the reason I believe that she really dropped out. This is just my theory. Y'all want to hear it? Let me ask the chat. Y'all want to hear my theory? Please let me know if you want to hear my theory on why Kamala Harris dropped out, and I need you to understand what they just pulled on us. Before I tell you my theory, I'm going to read the title of the next article. Kamala Harris drops out of the 2020 presidential race after investing heavily in South Carolina. My theory is that she was picked as the vice president way back in South Carolina. I believe that Biden, because I don't know if everybody remembers and still doesn't understand, Biden doesn't really have a campaign. He just kind of just patching things together, and he's not Trump. I believe back in South Carolina, Bernie was about to take the nomination, and that what ended up happening is a side deal whereby Kamala Harris would not run in South Carolina and split the black vote. And as a result, she would get the vice president nomination despite having nothing to trade other than the optics of being black and how black people in South Carolina would have voted for her. That's the only thing she could give him. She had no delegates or anything else. So on the backs of ADOS in South Carolina, she got the vice presidential nomination to help Biden basically kind of undercut, we can almost call it cheat, Bernie and the voters. And the reason why it's such a cheat to me, let me explain, is because fundamentally we choose who we want to see in the primaries throughout the debates cycle. Well, if we chose to see you in the primary and see you actually run in the primary, and as a result did not choose someone else who had to drop out earlier, you cheated the system if you drop out before the primaries only to make another candidate coalesce with your vote. This is, to me, different than if you got delegate counts and you actually have high level support and you do this to coalesce the party. Especially when you have such an outside candidate as Bernie, and this isn't support for Bernie, this is just saying what I think happened is that basically a side deal was done where Kamala was going to be the VP and she just wasn't going to hurt Biden's chances in South Carolina. Can everybody see that? Can everybody see the hustle that just happened? I told that to Yvette because it was so weird. I need you to understand, you don't invest heavily in South Carolina, the first primary, and then just drop out, but to not see. Come on, man, let's stop. U.S. Senator Kamala Harris dropped out of the 2020 presidential race, ending a bid that had, well, let me say the first black state to vote, ending a bid that had focused heavily on the early primary state of South Carolina. In an email to supporters, the California Democrats cited a lack of financial resources needed to continue the race. I'm not a billionaire. I can't fund my own campaign, and as the campaign has gone on, it's become harder and harder to raise money. We need to compete. In good faith, I can't tell you, my supporters and volunteers, that I have a path forward. The decision came as Harris has struggled in recent months to regain apparent momentum she had when she entered the race in January in front of a 20,000 crowd in Oakland. She built an extensive campaign operation in South Carolina and spent more time in the state than any other candidate since the start of the campaign, along with the other African-American senator in the race. Understand, she dropped out before this primary. I don't think it was happenstance. That's just my view. I believe that she was primed to do well. And when I say do well, I'm talking about, ahead of Biden. I think that she would have finished ahead of Biden. Obama was white and Kenyan. And I believe even the white was a known property, even though it was a problem. Kamala is Brahmin Indian and Jamaican. And what we do know is that she went on to the Breakfast Club and offended her father by talking about how much they smoke weed. It was jokes, almost like, are you attached to these Jamaicans? Because that's not how you speak about people that you respect and care for. I just know that she's really anchored in the Brahmin Indian mother. And I do know that from the very fact that she was moved to Canada with the Brahmin Indian mother. I mean, you see the picture I showed earlier. We haven't seen pictures like that of Kamala with her Jamaican father. I'm just saying what we have. I mean, we haven't seen that. there's more to it. So right now, Kamala is trying to be recasted, even her political background. There's an article that shout out to Ada Chavez and The Intercept. They did an article on us that when we came out and Kamala and I get supporters of Kamala tried to call us bots or whatever, and it didn't make any sense. Well, they also did a new article called at The Intercept. There's a war going on over Kamala Harris's Wikipedia page, with unflattering elements vanishing. At least one highly dedicated Wikipedia user has been scrubbing controversial aspects of Harris' tough-on-crime record from her Wikipedia. Her decision not to prosecute Steve Minuchin for mortgage fraud related crimes, her strong support in Orange County, of prosecutors in Orange County who engaged in rampant misconduct, and other tidbits such as her previous assertion that it is not progressive to be soft on crime. The edits, according to the page history, have elicited strong pushback from Wikipedia's volunteer editor brigade and have drawn the page into controversy. Though it is a fight, the pro-Harris editor is currently winning. Last month, a Reddit user remembered this Atlantic piece and wrote a script to see which 2020 vice presidential contenders had the most edits in a span of 3 weeks. Harris had 408. Stacey Abrams had 66, Senator Warren had 22, and Klobuchar had 4. Understand, and a majority are from one person. One person just editing it, and I would doubt that he'd be editing it without support from, someone that's connected. And because you see with ADOS page how hard it is to edit a page, let alone edit a Kamala Harris page. They wouldn't let you do that unless you had support of someone. I'm just not seeing it. 400 times. They would ban your account. There's a lot going on, and what they're trying to do is erase the reality that this black girl magic thing that everybody is trying to do doesn't make a lot of sense. You got Angela Rye and the other girl that did the BET hosting. I forgot her name. They trying to run around and do the black girl magic. She black. It's a childish type of politics. I need you to understand that they don't understand the politics that goes with being ADOS, being black, advocating for black politics, looking at somebody's history and being honest. Have they done enough to garner your support? Not just looked at you and smiled. What are they talking about? I need you to see it, because they're trying to push this narrative that Biden owes us a black female vice president. Not an ADOS black vice president, but a black female vice president. Let's be clear. We're in a position where the first black president will have been Kenyan and white. And when Kamala is nominated, the first black VP, because they're likely to me to win based on what we're seeing, will be Indian and Jamaican, in a country that had 400 years of oppression of ADOS. We have been locked out of our own blackness. And I don't think you understand, nothing else shows that more than those two selections. In addition, you look at Eric Holder, and I don't think he's ADOS either as the first attorney general. I need you to understand this makes no sense. This is a direct statement and expression of the reality of the need for ADOS. I have no idea how they think they're going to march Kamala Harris through the deep South and get support in Florida and Georgia. Understand, she does not galvanize black folks. She actually turns them off. I need you to see it, because I know that we did the work. That's the only thing I can say. Myrice Richardson is a woman who was brutally murdered here in California. We interviewed, meaning Yvette, Carnell, myself, ADOS, we interviewed her father. In that interview, her father exposes the way that Kamala Harris not only mishandled the case in his view, but also mistreated him in his view. He was told there would be an investigation. They used the fact that there was going to be an investigation. Kamala office used that fact. Kamala ran around, used it as she ran for Senate, and basically said, I'm investigating this black girl. Black girl magic is the answer. But the day after she wins, she tells him the investigation is over. Tells the father. Understand that this case, it has all kind of issues. The young girl was taken to the police station. Essentially, while she was at the police station, her mother called, asked if she can come pick her up. They said, come in the morning. She's sitting in the front. When she comes in the morning, her daughter is gone. Next thing you know, they do a whole investigation, and the daughter has been killed. No one knows what happened. I need you to see it because Lee Baca and the sheriffs ended up in a whole other type of issue of scandal that only should have led to more review by Kamala that did not happen. She did not do enough to justify Black Girl Magic. Going to Howard is not justification for Black Girl Magic. I know this. There is no way that you anchor her at the cost of ADOS men. What do I mean? So ADOS men wasn't president. But now these black women are going around galvanizing energy and saying Cory Booker shouldn't be the selection because he's a man and he's black. But any black woman hasn't been chosen yet, so you should choose Kamala. Understand how ignorant that is. You are basically cutting out ADOS men and including black immigrant women at their expense. Let me say it again. Make it clear. You carve out ADOS men because you're saying that a black man already was president. And then you include all these foreign and black immigrant women to the cost of these ADOS men when they never got included in anything. Y'all see the hustle? Please support the super chat. Y'all see the hustle? They don't even know that they doing this. You know, they don't even know. They don't even know what they be saying. You saw Nicole Hannah-Jones came around with Karen Attiah and she started making ADOS arguments. That's what we've been saying. Now you see. Now you see the consequence of taking Black Lives Matter and saying that they were part of reparations when they don't have no reparations policies. That ain't even what they talking about. They not talking about what you just responded to Karen Attiah about. I'm talking about the woman that wrote the 1619 Project and these tweets that she put up, basically making the arguments that ADOS been making. But everybody want to act like we ain't talking right. I need y'all to see it. Kamala Harris has to answer for not prosecuting Steve Minuchin. Y'all remember the Steve Minuchin? Steve Minuchin that's the head of the Treasury right now. Steve Minuchin, who did all the funny stuff with his banks. Kamala was supposed to investigate him and did not. This is the woman who they're trying to push to us. Steve Minuchin and One West Bank were, according to a memo obtained and reported by The Intercept. Here goes The Intercept again, doing that work. Guilty of widespread misconduct in the form of over 1,000 legal violations. The memo was the result of a year-long investigation, and it asserts that One West Bank operated to intentionally boost foreclosures. The Campaign for Accountability called for a federal investigation of Minuchin and One West Bank, claiming they used potential illegal tactics to foreclose on as many as 80,000 California homes. So we have Obama at the federal level, and we have Kamala at the state level, and they both led to destruction of black wealth like we hadn't seen, and then failed to want to investigate the people who actually did it. Let's talk about it. Yet, despite internal memos explicitly mentioning numerous prosecutable offenses by Minuchin and co., then California Attorney General Kamala Harris refused to prosecute. She never gave an explanation for her decision, and Minuchin later donated $2,000 to her campaign. It was his only donation to a Democratic candidate. This is what we got going on. But it don't stop there. It don't stop there. Kamala Harris and her connection to inmate fires. You know, Kamala was the attorney general. These black men were supposed to get out, be free, but instead they were forced to go fight fires when the fires happened for $1 and $2 an hour and risk themselves because they didn't want to risk the firefighters. As California Attorney General, Kamala Harris led a team that fought to keep more people in prison so they could fight wildfires. It began when federal courts ruled that California prisons were overcrowded. Staff attorneys in Harris' office said releasing low-level offenders more quickly would deplete a workforce that California relies on to suppress wildfires. Harris later reversed that position, saying her staff attorneys had made the argument without her knowledge. Now in her, I need you to see, we don't need nobody who who act like they don't know. This is your office. This is your watch. These are the people you hire. I didn't hear you fired these people, because this is, if you believe, then they would have been fired. Y'all feel me? They got black men that's supposed to be out, low level offenses. So we talking about small levels of weed even that's legal now. So something that's legal now had a black guy out there risking his body, probably bad equipment, paid $1 an hour, fighting fires. They pay real firefighters hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is just theft. This is, to me, Kamala Harris was running an office that was running a form of peonage. And now she's running on the optics of blackness. Peonage being, we look at slavery by the name, Douglas Blackman, they put these black men in prison, then they force them to mine steel ore, and they mine steel ore and the wealth goes to Carnegie, but then they die in the mines. Well, how is that different than having these black men fight these fires that are only there for low-level offenses? Counterfeit 20. It could easily be George Floyd fighting fires on the basis of Kamala office deciding that they need to be a workforce. I need you to see it. I need you to see it. And I see this thing happening right before us, and we're not being honest about it. We're not seeing the optics of it. The discussion needs to happen. And I'm looking at this Kamala Harris character. I'm looking at her and seeing and asking the question, is she our reparations? Because her only reason to be nominated VP is that she looks like Adolph's. And that what they don't understand is that she will turn down the Adolph's vote rather than increase it. She gives you nothing in the South again. Nothing in the Midwest. I don't even know if she delivers black churches and black families. She might give you old blacks. I don't even know. Look, I'm not saying that black women won't come out, but I'll be the first to tell them that they shouldn't come out based on this record, based on this history, based on this person's actual lineage and the reality of who she is. We need to talk today. I'm in here. We talking. So we saying what nobody else want to say. The Brahmin Indian thing, 460 in LA, $460,000. Middle Adolph's family worth $200 liquid. What are we talking about here? See, don't make this about blackness. Let's make this about truth. How do you get $460,000 when white folks have $355? Oppression. Oppression. It's oppression going on somewhere in that lineage. Understand that you also get it by increasing advantages through those green cards. By decreasing advantages by having black men fight fires. So you tell them that you're going to add green cards for the Indians, and then you have the black men fight fires. But let's talk about the black woman, because that is what I need Angela Rye to answer. I need Angela Rye to answer this article I'm about to read. See, this article actually is the bread and butter of Kamala. Kamala has no policy more important to who she is and what she actually got passed than her truancy laws. Kamala Harris championed truancy laws that led to black men, black women being arrested and fined at levels that are obscene for only having their children not go to school regardless of reason. I need you to understand she got it passed under a Republican governor. I need you to understand she pushed for this. Look. Before I get to the article, I'm going to cut a video in right here of her at the 2011 inauguration, her own words, because their children didn't go to school. Let's talk.
Last year alone, we had 600,000 truant students in our elementary schools, which roughly matches the number of inmates in our state prison system. And is it a coincidence? Of course not. And as unacceptable as this problem is, I know we can fix it. In San Francisco, we threatened the parents of truants with prosecution, and truancy dropped 32%. So we are putting parents on notice. If you fail to take responsibility for your kids, we are going to make sure that you face the full force and consequences of the law. And this work to combat truancy is part of the broader oath that I swore today, and the oath upheld every day by the men and women of the Attorney General's office. Our mission statement includes a fundamental promise to encourage economic prosperity, equal opportunity, and tolerance, and to safeguard California's human, natural, and financial resources for this and future generations.
But the human cost of Kamala Harris' war on truancy, Huffington Post. The progressive prosecutor wanted to transform how California responded to students missing school. Parents like Cherie Peoples wound up paying the price. This is a black woman. On the morning of April 18, 2013, in the Los Angeles suburb of Buena Park, a throng of photographers positioned themselves on a street curb and watched as two police officers entered a squat townhouse. Minutes later, their cameras began clicking. Their officers had reemerged with a weary-looking woman in pajamas and handcuffs, and the photographers were jostling to capture her every step. This is Kamala Harris's work. You are going to be photographed for truancy arrest, and we don't know why your kid was truant as a black woman. Angela Rye, make that make sense. Can y'all tweet Angela Rye with the final version and make her answer, how does that make sense with your black girl magic? You would swear I had killed somebody, the woman Cherie Peoples said in a recent interview. In fact, Peoples had been arrested for her daughter's spotty school attendance record under a truancy law that then California Attorney General Kamala Harris had personally championed in the state legislature. The law enacted in January 2011 made it a criminal misdemeanor for parents to allow kids in kindergarten through 8th grade to miss the more than 10% of school days without a valid excuse. People's 11-year-old daughter, Shayla, had missed 20 days so far that year. But hold on. Shayla is at Children's Hospital of Orange County. Peoples was arrested 6 years ago for Shayla's repeated truancy despite ample evidence given to the Orange County school showing Shayla suffers from sickle cell anemia, which leaves her in constant pain and requires hospitalization. So Kamala Harris led to a black woman whose daughter had sickle cell anemia, and that's why she wasn't going to school, being photographed as a criminal. Come on. Being photographed as a criminal and taken to jail. The law was the capstone of Harris' years-long campaign to get tough on truancy, the term for when a child consistently misses school without a valid truancy excuse. A few years later, she persuaded the state legislature to adopt harsher penalties for truancy. Under the new law, the parent or guardian of a young truant child could face a fine of $2,500 or more, or 1 year in jail. So if you can't pay the $2,500, 1 year in jail. The middle ADOS family in Los Angeles, this is where the woman's at, has $200 liquid. So you gotta go to jail for a year. I need you to understand this is who Angela Rye and Alicia Garza in the Washington Post, Angela Rye, Alicia Garza, this is who the Black Caucus, they trying to push this person who isn't ADOS down our throats, who did this to this black woman. Make it make sense. We are putting parents on notice, Harris said at her 2011 inauguration. You have heard this from her own words in the video. If you fail in your responsibility to your kids, we are going to work to make sure you face the full force and consequence of the law. This woman is center right at best. Center right at best. I don't want to hear no Black Lives Matter tears. I want to know, why did this woman go to jail? Why were photographs taken of her? Why did police come to her house? Kamala Harris herself should have talked to the black man who is Myrice Richardson's father and sat and cried with that man. Kamala Harris should have went to this woman's house and asked her, what do you need in money from the state to make sure that your child can go to school? Or Kamala Harris doesn't need to be running as ADOS. I need you to see it. We talking. Can I wipe my brow like a preacher? So I'm seeing this conversation happen, and people don't understand this is who they trying to give us and make our reparations. This woman. I'm talking politics. We got a lot of people talking BIPOC. I'm talking a black ADOS-centered politics. We got a lot of people talking BIPOC. They got a whole little campaign now, even internally, because they seeing it now that she might be wrong. Some Biden allies wage a shadow campaign to stop Kamala Harris from becoming vice president, CNBC. Some of Joe Biden's allies are waging a campaign behind the scenes to stop Senator Kamala Harris, Democrat in California, from becoming his vice president. This disgruntled group of at least a dozen Biden backers, including a few of his top donors, initiated the move against Harris close to a month ago, just weeks before a decision is expected to be made, according to people with direct knowledge of the matter. In some cases, her foes have taken their concerns directly to the member of the Biden's VP search committee. Some remain bitter about her attacks on Biden during primary debates last year, saying they bring into question her loyalty to the former vice president. Others argue that she is too ambitious and that she will be solely focused on becoming president herself. Look, I could easily see a world where, God forbid, anything happened to Biden. You know, I don't wish nothing on nobody, even if, you know, I try to be a good person. I mean, this man did a lot bad stuff to black folks, but if something happened to Biden, she became president, I could see her runs be center right. Not necessarily change her affiliation and become a Republican, but basically run a Republican presidency. Hard nose. I mean, that's her legacy and her that when you look at everything. Let's just lay it out. I need you to see it because ain't nobody else gonna see it. Do y'all remember the article by The Intercept? Black critics of Kamala Harris and Cory Booker push back against claims that they're Russian bots. Angela Rye and Joy Reid have speculated that ADOS are Russian bots. They didn't prove nothing. They did have something about Ghanaians being Russian bots that came out or something. What they never proved is that we were Russian bots, and I don't know a Russian, and Yvette don't know one. They owe us an apology. They don't know what to do with us because we galvanized black folks. I see you guys at the AB 3121 hearing calling in. Understand, I sat on the phone for 3 hours to testify in AB 3121 California Reparations bill. I heard 4 other bills before ours. They only got 2 calls each. 2 additional people called. One of them had 1 caller. We had over 125 black people sit on the phone. One guy was a cement truck driver and sat on the phone to say, yay, I support this bill. I need you to understand that Kamala Harris guts all of that. We go back to what Obama did. We go back to her own history. I need you to understand, she undermines all of that black politics. She will do nothing for black folks. She will do everything for the green card recipient and for the DACA recipient outright. I need you to see it because we got a problem here. Everybody keeps telling me that Obama couldn't do nothing for black folks because of the Senate. What they can't explain to me is then, why did he do DACA from his presidential desk? I need you to understand this. Obama didn't even support reparations. That's what the Wall Street Journal thing shows. It's not just that he didn't get a bill passed. He didn't believe reparations were right or reasonable. In addition, he didn't even push for an apology for slavery from the nation that we actually could bring litigation from. I need you to see it all and be honest, because the people that still think that he was good, that are in your circles, you got to question their politics. They don't understand politics. Make it make sense. Being not Trump ain't politics. I need you to see it. They tried to call us bots. Y'all remember that? They tried to call us bots. They couldn't prove we was bots. Great opinion article, Ricky Jones. Black people didn't trust Kamala Harris and they were wise not to. In the article, he says, and we just running things down. I want to make sure that we go to church here and that we are very clear. Can y'all support me? Support the chat. My Patreon is Tone Talks. We in here having this discussion. We got 2,000 people live. Man, this is what needs to happen because ain't nobody else gonna do it. Everybody else is talking black girl magic. I'm not seeing it. They don't want to get honest about the fact that she's Brahmin Indian. Nothing wrong with being Brahmin Indian, but I don't see the difference in her and Mindy Kaling's brother. Mindy Kaling's brother was an Indian, and he played like he was ADOS to get in medical school. He came out and he was chastised for it. I don't see the difference. Just because you have a Jamaican father that is largely estranged doesn't make you able to anchor yourself in ADOSness to get to the Senate and also to become vice president. I have no idea what the difference is. Maybe somebody else can make it make sense. Having African genes in some part of your blood doesn't make you no more ADOS than anyone else. I need you to see what the hustle is. Harris even announced her candidacy. And again, this is the article. Black people didn't trust Kamala Harris and they were wise not to. Harris even announced her candidacy on Martin Luther King Jr. Day in 2019. She announced no policy. No policy. Went to Howard and everything. Made a whole pomp and posture. Did nothing for us. That and her blind side of Joe Biden on his busing record made it clear she was attempting to lure African-American votes by wrapping herself in the cloak of black struggle. It did not sell. While some members of the self-involved black bourgeoisie nauseatingly praised her, younger blacks and black progressive ADOS, come on, say it loud. He didn't say ADOS, but that's what he is talking about. Were taking deeper, dispassionate dives into Harris' real-world record. They didn't like what they found. To the chagrin of her supporters, close examination of the woman who took pride in... Hold on one second. Of the woman who took pride in the title of California's Top Cop by writer Laura Bazelon and others revealed that Harris had been nothing close to the civil rights warrior she claimed to be. In actuality, she had spent much of her professional life prosecuting and persecuting poor people. And Bazelon wrote that Harris opposed or stayed silent on multiple aspects of criminal justice reform. She laughed when a reporter asked her about decriminalization marijuana after reversing course years later as public opinion changed. She opposed the bill requiring her office to investigate police shootings. She also opposed statewide police officer body camera regulations. Her record on police reform was so troubling that for many that Garofalo cited former Harris supporter and California activist Felicia Jones lamenting how many more people need to die before she steps in. Harris didn't stop there. She even fought for a law that would prosecute parents of habitually truant elementary schoolers. Understand, it said 10% in the law. That's not habitual. Despite concerns that it would disproportionately affect low-income people of color. I like that word. When Harris released her memoir, I didn't even know the lady had a book. She got a book, y'all. She got a whole book that ain't nobody read. When Harris released the memoir, The Truth We Hold, Ciamarello reviewed it and wrote, Kamala Harris' new book tries to massage her record as a prosecutor, but the facts aren't pretty. The facts aren't pretty. I got this last article by Politico, and you should read it. How Kamala Harris went from female Obama to 5th place. She entered the 2020 presidential race with promise and charisma, but is now sliding perilously close to irrelevance. And now they, I'm going to read a little bit of it, but now they're trying to make her relevant again, and nothing supports it. I'm just saying to you that we got a whole reality here. We got a reality of a black America, of a nation that doesn't want to be honest about how we got here, how we were shut out, how black folks are owed, how ADOS folks are owed a debt like that's immeasurable, what happened to us. And the cover is to use people who don't come from that, but look somewhat like us. And that's not good enough. And I say this thing to you because I'm looking at this Political article. Harris today has another explanation for her inability to get voters to see her as the next president. What she's calling the donkey in the room. Before a few hundred people on a chilly October night in the Des Moines suburb of Anarchy, surrounded by hay bales and framed by the Iowa flag, she wondered aloud, is America ready for that? Are they ready for a woman of color to be president? Her whole optics game is built on basically saying woman of color. There's no politics there to justify it. She delivers no states that aren't already blue. California will be blue anyway. In addition, she doesn't even have that long history of doing activism on the ground or caring for black folks. So I need to understand where we're at. And I need you to understand that Kamala Harris cannot be our reparations. And if she is, it might be the end of ADOS as we know it. Her announcement in Oakland, we've had Willie Brown come out. And, I ain't going to talk about it right now. But Willie Brown had said they was involved in this relationship. And he was 60 and she was 29. And that's how her political career largely started. And he played a major role. He says this in this 135-word article. And it sounded like it questioned loyalty as well to me. You also have Kamala Harris. News One does the article today on the town hall last night with CNN. When asked if she, about being the first black woman, she deflected and moved to a discussion about being a woman or a woman of color. Everyone attacked me and Yvette Carnell when we brought up American Descendants of Slavery and ADOS as saying that she wasn't black. Now, neither me and Yvette were making that accusation. We believe that, she's a black woman by the definition on the global diaspora. That does not make her American descendant of slavery. Now, I don't know if she thinks that, though. Now, we might see a pivot because she watches this video. And all of a sudden, she's calling herself black, 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 black. But we know that she has, on a national stage, deflected to women of color rather than talking about being a black person grounded in black issues in America. And that's where we at. We're going to get into it Friday. What I wanted to talk about today with Kamala Harris is the truancy thing. I wanted to discuss the whole reality of a hard-nosed prosecutor and Kamala Harris. Again, it's Kamala, not Kamala. I think that, as I said in my longer set, my radio show, I believe that by creating this confusion with the name Kamala, we actually saw her as even more grounded in being African. But her name is actually Kamala. And so, essentially, for me, I think that all this confusion has played really well for her, but it's time to put feet to the fire. We look at her and her what I feel like one of her main programs that she's championed, she's running away from now. Because it's not going to work with the Democratic platform pushing left. And what that is basically this truancy laws that she put in place in the Bay as the district attorney of San Francisco back in 2004, and then she took it to the whole state under Schwarzenegger, one of his last bills that he signed, championed by none other than Kamala Harris. She pushed this thing where essentially parents had their children had missed schools consecutively were facing punishment and fines. They were facing $2,000 in fines and possible jail time. To enforce this, she would send prosecutors into parent-teacher meetings. Now, she lauded over the fact that the rates went up, of course. Everybody's scared of going to jail. This is awful. This woman is one of the worst black Democratic national candidates in a generation. And I don't understand how we here. We'll talk about it Friday. But for me, I'm looking at this thing and I don't understand how we don't see this truancy thing just in and of itself as ending her campaign. You look and you see this reality of this all happening in the shadow of San Francisco and post-08. You can't understand this without understanding that many of these people probably aren't going to school because they're unstable. Wealth inequality changed America. Wealth inequality picked up over the last 10 years. You had a bunch of people homeless, living in cars. A bunch of people not able to make ends meet. And so now, as an answer to that, what Kamala is doing is, instead of addressing wealth inequality, instead of punishing the banks like Steve Minuchin, instead of attacking the powers, she takes it to the parents and threatens to throw them in jail for their kids not making it to school. Understand this. Even the fine amounts don't make sense. I don't think a fine at all is right. But if this ain't $25 or $75, understand this, that the middle, according to the Color of Wealth report in Los Angeles, the middle black, a native family is worth $200 liquid. She's going to find the middle black family that's worth $200 or $300, probably not much different than San Francisco, $2,000. This is awful. This woman's campaign is awful. I look at this thing and the possibility of jail time because your kid didn't make school, that makes no sense. Sending in gang prosecutors. I'm gonna let her speak. I want to cut in a clip of Kamala speaking and let her talk, and then we'll come back and we'll finish out.
I would not be standing here were it not for the education I received. And I know many of us will say the same thing. And I believe a child going without an education is tantamount to a crime. So I decided I was going to start prosecuting parents for truancy. Well, this was a little controversial in San Francisco. And frankly, my staff went bananas. They were very concerned because we didn't know at the time whether I was going to have an opponent in my re-election race. But I said, look, I'm done. This is a serious issue, and I've got a little political capital, and I'm going to spend some of it. And this is what we did. We recognized that in that initiative, as a prosecutor and law enforcement, I have a huge stick. The school district has got a carrot. Let's work in tandem around our collective objective and goal, which is to get those kids in school. So, to that end, on my letterhead. Now let me tell you something about my letterhead. When you're the DA of a major city in this country, usually the job comes with a badge. And there is often an artistic rendering of said badge on your stationery. So I sent a letter out on my letterhead to every parent in the school district, outlining the connection that was statistically proven between elementary school truancy, high school dropouts, who will become a victim of crime, and who will become a perpetrator of crime. We sent it out to everyone. A friend of mine actually called me and he said, Kamala, my wife got the letter. She freaked out. She brought all the kids into the living room, held up the letter, said, if you don't go to school, Kamala's gonna put you and me in jail. Yes, we achieved intended effect.
So we go back to, we can't help but go all the way back. Here's an article from 2009 talking about what, she's 4 years into this truancy program, and it says San Francisco high school students had better watch out. The city's district attorney is casting a wider net for kids who skip school. For the last 4 years, District Attorney Kamala Harris has worked with the local school district to zero in on truant elementary and middle school students and their parents. Her idea was that the adults responsible for children should be the ones held accountable for their chronic absences, and after several warrants should be prosecuted if they could not get their children to school. This is a woman who was proud of that. You got to understand, Kamala Harris is from the Brahmin class of Indians on her mother's side. That's the most elite class of Indians on the caste. We're talking about a hard caste, and she's from the most elite class. Understand that American descendants of slaves would be next to the untouchables, if not below them, because we come from chattel slaves. Fundamentally, this woman is not of us. And she's doing things that is almost population control oriented. Stuff that comes out of being Brahmin. You come back to the aunt said that the mom inculcated her in Southeast Asian culture. Not just Southeast, in Brahmin culture. Say it what it is, in elitist culture. This is an elitist program by an elitist person running around wearing some AKA stuff at a pearl dance, at a pink pearl dance, acting like she's speaking for the bottom part of, for the bulk of black folks. I'll say it again. Bring up the chart. Black folks have 2.6% of the national wealth. White folks have 90%. But the problem is that we have wealth calcification within Black America like we've never seen. Top 10% of Black America controls 75% of the Black American wealth. The bottom 90% has the rest. It's not enough. And when you look at Kamala Harris, what you see is that she doesn't understand that it will activate programs, truancy programs that affect African American, Latino people in all kind of ways that are just disadvantageous. So why can't she say that on a national level? That's what she did. Because she's going to bring that to a national level. Shouldn't she have to say that to all of the parents and the communities that I'm going to do this too? Okay, I'm talking all this other stuff that Bernie is talking, but I'm also going to bring my program that I've been championing all the way along to the national stage and make parents go to jail for truancy for their kids. We got to hold people accountable for their career. That's her career. And so I continue on, and you have this article that says one of the law's biggest advocates as it moved through the California legislature, Kamala Harris, according to a 2011 article by the organization Color Lines, Harris praised the efforts in her inaugural address as she sworn in, and she included this in her actual inaugural address. This is what she says in her inauguration as the Attorney General. We know chronic truancy leads to dropping out, which dramatically increases the odds that a young person will become either a perpetrator or a victim of crime. Folks, it is time to get serious about the problem of chronic truancy in California. Last year, we had 600,000 truant students in our elementary schools alone, which roughly matches the number of inmates in our state prisons. And as an acceptance of the problem is, I know we can fix it. In San Francisco, we threatened the parents of truancy with prosecution, and truancy dropped 32%. So we are putting parents on notice. If you fail in your responsibility to your kids, we're going to work to make sure you face the full force and consequences of the law. This is the person that's running around now talking about Medicare for all. We got to hold her accountable. Ski wee? I'm just saying what it is. Fundamentally, I think that what we doing is we not being honest that Kamala Harris is not the Kamala Harris from Camelot that she keep on projecting herself as. There's a law review article on the UCLA Law website where they kind of break this thing down in a treatise kind of thing, and then they come to a conclusion that if we care about solving student truancy, we must shift the way in which we frame and discuss the issue. The current prevailing framework has led to solutions that punish students and parents. I want you to go read this article. It's called An Interrogation in Response to the Predominant Framing of Truancy. This is who Kamala Harris is. We gonna talk about it Friday, Dash Radio, Dash Talk X. This is horrible. Just this truancy thing. I mean, I think that when we start looking at everything, we can't help but look back at April 2018, where the California court found against Kamala 3-0 that this is wrong. They found against this whole program. So she don't even know the limits of power. They found that it is up to the legislature to actually punish. And they haven't decided to punish people for not going to school, not sending them to jail, and giving them fines worth 10 times the amount of the median family. This is draconian. This is the kind of stuff you will find with Betsy DeVos, or you expected to find with Betsy DeVos, not Kamala Harris, not Camelot. So, you know, what I just wanted to come to you briefly and explain that we see all of this happening in the framework of wealth inequality. All of this truancy, all of this. So basically, her job is to protect the white wealth of San Francisco from the issues that are faced by poor black and brown people all throughout San Francisco as a result of the hoarding of wealth by Silicon Valley and the like. This is what we got going on. I want you to understand that. So let's talk about a couple of the comments that I saw. Shout out to everybody that's been in the comments. We've had a spirited discussion. I just want to make sure everybody understands that it's not just me. This is a movement. This is us. So the first comment is from Nicole Richmond. What people are missing is that he most likely went to... What people are missing is that she, and she meant to say she's talking about Kamala Harris at this point, most likely went to Howard because she was able to use the affirmative action minority benefits. She a woman, and she is non-white, so she used African American fought benefits. She's using blacks to get ahead for a long time. She's been using blacks to get ahead for a long time. This is Nicole Richmond on the YouTube. Another one, Pepperless. The DNC has stolen the African American lineage, history, and struggle. Next one. This is actually, I've been getting a diverse set of comments and a diverse set of people coming in. Again, extremely positive. Everybody sees what American DOS and basically the hustle and con that's been going on against American descendants of slave in terms of flattening blackness, as Yvette put it on my last show. But this guy, he appears to be a white man. He says his name is Terminal Staff Sergeant. He said, as a white man, I've been saying all along that people immigrating to the United States as first and second generation. As a white man, I've been saying all along that people immigrated to the United States as first and second generation Americans are being allowed to keep their heritage and identity while telling us that we can't have ours. The American dream is being stolen from us, with Black America being the most vulnerable. People like Kamala Harris and Nikki Haley are examples of this problem. And I probably wouldn't agree with him. I probably wouldn't agree with him on much issues. But on this, I actually do agree. Fundamentally, what you see is that this was a perfect time for Kamala Harris, for Barack Obama, because they ingratiate themselves to white folks and to power. Because they already come from professionals and they're going to inherit $400,000, as we saw with Obama. We don't know what Kamala even inherited from her mama. We know that they inherit privilege. They globe-trekked in the 70s. And I just think that, we got to get honest about everything. The last comment that I want to read is it was a great comment that was on the YouTube, and what the person spoke to is being from where Kamala graduated high school and talking to the kind of calling herself African American. Harris is from Westmount, Quebec, Canada, one of the elite communities in the Montreal area and in Canada. Google it. I'm Black and Jamaican heritage. I speak French and have 2 college degrees and 6 years of university. There is no way I could afford to live in Westmount. I live 5 minutes from Westmount. They are a society of their own, a closed society of private schools and country clubs and spas and millionaires. She is not African American. I would be shocked if she could even relate to the African American history and struggle, knowing what I know about Westmount. I just want y'all to go. You can go find that comment, read for yourself. Let's keep the discussion going. It's time to get real. Let's have the discussion. Let's push this thing because it's time for our voice to be heard.